stream is set up, I'm going to go ahead and click start webinar. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Alrighty, well, I think we'll get started. Thank you everyone for tuning in for today's webinar. My name is Brittany Higgins. I am a customer marketing manager here at Branch, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's webinar. Today, we'll be walking you through organic strategies to bridge the offline to online gap using QR codes. We'll cover how to use QR codes for a better marketing strategy using low intent to high intent engagement tactics. And later on, we'll be joined by Wine.com and Belk to talk about how they utilize QR codes for their recent growth campaigns. Now, just before we get started, a few housekeeping items. The audience will be muted for the duration of the webinar, but you'll have a chance to submit any questions in the chat box. We'll be doing a live Q&A at the end of the session, so feel free to submit your questions and we'll get to them then. In addition, this webinar is recorded. You'll get a follow-up email afterwards that will include the slides and the presentation. And finally, if you see any ways for us to improve, feel free to fill out a short survey at the end of the webinar. And we'll also have a couple of polls throughout, so just be on the lookout for those. Now, let's get started. I'm very excited to introduce today's speakers. First, we have Reed Kuhn from Branch. He is the Director of Business Strategy, where he connects the massive data within the Branch platform to real customer impact. Next, we have Britta Voris, who is the Content Marketing Manager for Wine.com, the world's largest online wine retailer. Britta has 7 years of experience in content marketing for e-commerce brands, and at Wine.com uses storytelling and data to create a conversation with the customer, helping them make educated purchases and discover the world of wine, my favorite world. And last but certainly not least, we are joined by Katie Kazukinis, who is the Senior Product Manager for e-commerce at Belk. Katie is responsible for driving revenue for Belk's mobile channels with strategic initiatives that engage customers and keep them coming back to the app for relevant content, trending products, offers, and more. Thank you all so much for joining us. And then here's a quick snapshot for today's agenda. First, Reed will give us an overview of how brands can leverage QR codes to drive more app adoption and engagement. Then he'll walk you through the low intent to high intent framework with real world examples. Afterwards, we'll have Britta give us an overview of the growth campaign that won her and Wine.com the Mobile Growth Award for Best Digital Campaign, where physical meets digital. And finally, Katie will walk us through the Belk app attack campaign and how they were able to spark a little friendly competition amongst stores using QR codes that drove 12% of their total app installs. So again, if you have any questions at all, feel free to submit them in the chat box below and we'll cover them at the end. And without further ado, I'll hand it off to Reed.
All right, thanks a lot. So QR codes are the hot topic of the pandemic era. In North America, a year ago, around this same time, I think I was gearing up for a webinar that eventually got canceled because it was in person. But the story that we were delivering about owning your channels and trying to tap into them to drive downloads didn't have a huge emphasis on QR codes at the time. And that story has changed very, very rapidly just in the last year. We are seeing QR codes all over the place. What was fairly normal in parts of Asia has now become rapidly adopted in North America. And so the time is perfectly to talk about this. I believe it will continue to be a driver for growth as we move forward, even out of the pandemic. And I think the use cases that we've seen are so diverse and powerful that I think that's what makes us a cool tool to utilize, because I don't even know if we've seen the coolest use cases yet, but we are seeing a whole lot of them. So let's first start a poll. I just want to level set and see of the users out there, how many have actually used QR codes? Catherine, if you could launch that. Do we have it on screen? There we go. Okay, so are you currently using QR codes as part of your mobile strategy? Place your votes. Okay. Good mix. Okay. So there's a few yes, yes, strong yes, and then we see soft yes, a few more. But the majority of you haven't quite adopted this yet. You're interested in leveraging it. You're going to hear some very good results from our speakers in a minute. And I'm also going to explain the wide variety of use cases that we have at our disposal. So I think we have a winner, which is you haven't used it, which makes this conversation even more interesting, since hopefully you will learn something. All right. So those are the final results there. Okay. Let's jump in. Let's also figure out how to get rid of this. Okay. All right. So very quickly, just a crash course in QR. QR codes are essentially a link. Any link, hyperlink, or even a branch deep link can have a QR code associated with it. So you can send people to a web address, or you can send people to the App Store, or you can even defer deep link them through the App Store. And you can pull out any camera. The vast majority of phones in North America already have this capability built in. So you can, in one swipe, open up your camera, and the camera itself will automatically detect this at a certain resolution. It will drop down the ability to link, one click, and you're in. And why is that important? It's because in an offline world, understanding someone standing in a store, for example, and then driving an app install and then having them purchase is something that can be measured. The full funnel of user activity can be measured in that instance. And that includes going through the App Store and installing. So rather than someone seeing a sign that says, please download our app, and they look it up in the App Store and they download and then they purchase, you have no way of knowing if that person saw the call to action that led to the purchase. And this is a way not only to streamline that user experience, but also measure it on the back end. So user experience is hugely important, but we're also tapping into a very large audience. And regardless of what you're doing, whether it's just brand awareness or trying to relentlessly drive installs or get people to opt into loyalty programs, what you're trying to do is less important. This is just the pathway to accomplish multiple objectives. And the same way a hyperlink can take you to an article directly within a website or a particular product It can also track certain things. It can send parameters. It can say where you're coming from or what geocode you're in. A deep link can do the exact same thing. So on top of just driving people to the App Store or to your website, you can also pass parameters along. And that's what makes the link part more important. And so you can activate promotions with a single click. You can identify where they're coming from. You can have two signs right next to each other, one of them offering 10% off or one of them offering free shipping. And you can now see which one does better, which one leads to more downstream purchases. It's a great way to attribute downstream events and also play that A/B testing role. Every marketing organization out there wants to be data-driven. This gives you much more data to work with. You can also use QR codes to do sharing. We're seeing farmers markets with small QR codes to activate a PayPal. So we're seeing use cases all over the place. And the fact that you're tapping into an offline audience, a QR code is kind of like a buy once, use as much as you want type tool. So you can put them all over the place and they can drive installs and downstream events all day long in perpetuity. And so that means the acquisition cost goes down and down over time because the cost of the install is negligible. So lots of different ways to use these things. For branch, for our users that actually use our dashboard, the main point here is that every branch link has a QR code. And so it's allowing you to measure, it's allowing you to drive the installs, and mostly the user experience should be seamless in that process. Anything that breaks, anytime you have extra clicks along the way, it's just an opportunity for drop off. And that's what we're trying to avoid. All right, so let's get into the fun part. So when we talk about intent-based marketing, most businesses will see the most engaged users in their app, whether it's a retail customer or an entertainment streaming customer or like a news media customer. The people in app are going to convert higher. They're going to return more often. They have a much higher lifetime value. So when you see LTV pop up in this presentation, that's what I'm talking about there. But the app user base might be the smallest part of their pyramid. They might have a lot of mobile web traffic, depending on the business. They may have a lot of desktop traffic. And what we're seeing in certain verticals, whether it's retail, quick serve restaurants, travel, banking, retail banks at least, you see a massive amount of offline traffic. And what we're trying to do is move people up the levels of that pyramid. And QR codes specifically can be used on desktop and offline to allow you to leap into the highest tier of the app where they're going to be most valuable. And that cross-platform user is also inherently more valuable than a single platform user. So intent. We have a lot of different scenarios to use these QR codes. You have a low intent one-to-many. And we're going to show examples of all of these, but the types of media that we're going to see for low intent is commercials, billboards, direct mail. This is where you already have an advertising platform, but you're adding a QR code to it. So usually the upsell cost of investing in QR codes for those media is fairly low, because if a business uses direct mail, now adding the QR code gives some call to action. But you're blasting it wide. And so a lot of people might not look at the billboard, they don't see the commercial, or they throw away the direct mail. But those eyeballs are cheap. So the impressions are very high, but the conversion rate is very low. V to C means view to click. So it's the equivalent of how many people saw the QR code and actually chose to pull out their camera. That conversion rate might be low, but when you have a big enough population of eyeballs, it adds up to something that's material. And then you have the middle. Well, actually, let me explain the far end of the extreme, and then we'll land in the middle. So the high intent and one-to-one is where it's much more of a high intent user because they're actually in the act of buying something, or maybe they're in the retail store, or they're in the bank, or maybe they're standing in line for their flight, and they see something that is very much focused to them, and it's telling them to activate and download the app for whatever benefit that experience gives you. So that's like much more of a custom and targeted event. Inherently, we see higher view to click rates when things are personalized and targeted. And so that's an opportunity to show a one-to-one relationship. In the middle, there's some middle ground there where you might see signs, but they're not necessarily personalized to you. You might be receiving a catalog for a brand that you're familiar with, but you didn't necessarily open that catalog with the intent of buying something or downloading their app. The same thing is true for when you receive things in the mail. It might not be as focused as a one-to-one, like on your order or on your receipt for buying something, but it still has higher intent. It's definitely not a situation like looking at a billboard and driving by. So there is some middle ground there. So there's a wide spectrum of performance, but also the ability to drive impressions. So let's look at some of these things. Here we have some of our lower intent. So I mentioned print media. We have a radio ad for an app, but it's in a newspaper, which is very meta. So you pull out your phone, you take a picture of your newspaper QR code. Next thing you know, you're into the app and you can download. Here's print advertising, but it's signage. So this is kind of like a small billboard. And again, one to many, you see a lot of people passing by, but the view to click might be much lower. So now you're banking on the law of numbers in this one. You're banking on volume. Here's an on-screen, on TV example. We've done a few cool ones. NBC recently promoted a sponsor, Dunkin' Donuts, on screen. This is an example of Lego promoting on screen. And you're watching TV, you're a captive audience, so they know you're going to see it. The question is do you pull out your phone and take a picture of it? And here's direct mail. So this is an interesting one. I actually took this picture. I moved into a new house and I started receiving all these coupons. And sure enough, I start seeing QR codes. So this is direct mail. I might not have looked at that coupon, but I did receive it. And in this case, I did actually activate it because it turned out right around the corner. Here's another direct mail. This is Lowe's. So the direct mail, again, like this is a platform that companies are already paying for, and now they can add, and in many cases, actually companies were already plugging their app. And so now adding that QR code just gives you the immediate signal that this particular campaign drove the install and maybe even the purchase that counted for something. So we'll look at the middle ground. So here's an example of a catalog. So there's a catalog that you're receiving, and now they're adding QR codes in addition to plugging their app. Again, so many people were already advertising the benefits of downloading the app, but they didn't have a call to action. They just had maybe an icon for the App Store and Google Play and said, let's hope that people go there and download. Now we have a one-click way to drive those downloads. There's more examples. So you can see the middle example actually has those icons. And whether that's in a magazine or on a desktop, you can go to the App Store, but unless you're on your smartphone, you can't do anything about it. Here's a cool example. This is a QR code in an Air Jordan Nike shoe. Okay, so the highest conversion rate is going to be our one-to-one, like high intent user. So this is someone who is in store. Now in this case, for Pete's Coffee, we're seeing two different use cases. One of them is the sign on the store. So this is especially useful for people when the pandemic started, people weren't sure about the rules. You could stand outside and place your order from outside. And then let's assume you actually go in and get a cup of coffee. They would put these little stickers on your cup to incentivize downloading the app. So this is where we're really seeing a democratization of QR codes. We're going to talk a little bit about the scalability of this later, because each QR code will not for each customer on a cup, but these things can actually be changed dynamically on the back end too. We'll talk about that in a bit. Another quick serve restaurant. So they're putting it on bags. They're putting it on signs in the store. Again, this is a great use case for these days. And Starbucks putting it on a loyalty program flyer. And here's a handout, like a coupon in store, fashion retailer. And in this case, they're actually driving referral benefits. So using the app to not only get people to onboard and download the app, giving them money, receiving money as a bonus. This is for any platform or business vertical where the cost of acquisition is pretty high, but the return on converting someone is also very high. So you're willing to give some to turn them into a user. Okay, so of those, I think we have poll number 2. Of those 3 scenarios, which one is your business most interested in? So this will be interesting. Okay, so the high intent is winning. We'll give it a couple more seconds. High intent is winning on that poll, that flash poll. And active was second place. And again, I have a poll that overlaps one of my other. Here we go. Okay, so let me introduce Britta with our first guest example. These are cool real world examples that some of us at Branch have actually used, including me for this one, and excited to hear your story of how you use QR codes.
Thanks, Reed. Hi, everyone. My name is Britta Voris. I'm the content marketing manager at wine.com. And just a quick background for those of you who aren't familiar, wine.com, we're the world's largest online retailer of wine. We have thousands of wines in stock and ready to ship to most of the US states. And when lockdown started across the country, we saw a really big increase in business. I'm sure many of you probably wanted some wine shipped to your house. So we had a lot of new customers who wanted the wine shipped directly to their homes, and many of whom had never heard of us or had never even known you could ship wine to your house. And we also saw at that time a lot of people sending wine to friends and relatives as a way to connect, which was a huge opportunity for us to convert those recipients into customers in their own right. And as seen on the slide, we have an example of a print campaign that we ran this late summer. And we've always had print campaigns that we deliver to our customers, either as a package insert, as in this case, or in a direct mail campaign. And these include wine education, product updates, and exclusive discounts. But now we had this even larger audience, and with the way things have changed during COVID, we decided to add a QR code to this print piece to encourage them to use our app and receive a special discount in addition to the other discounts we were already sharing in this package insert. And as an aside, I was inspired to even consider QR codes when they've been around for a while, as mentioned, and hadn't seen as much adoption, I think in the States as elsewhere. But I saw my parents order takeout. They whipped out their phones and scanned this QR code like it was nothing, like they've been doing it their whole lives. And that really sparked the idea for me that, if my parents who are not really tech savvy knew this technology now, there were likely a lot of our existing and newer customers who would be having that same familiarity. So that inspired this test for us. And what we saw was some pretty exciting data with lots of people opening and downloading the app because of this campaign. As you can see on the slide here, QR codes having a 69% click to open rate and seeing a 7% click to purchase rate. And in addition to these codes, we saw a lot of other data that's not here. And we saw what was a really cool statistic for us with our codes, and it's pretty common for our customers. You can open in the app, but complete your purchase on another platform. With this code and using this campaign, we saw almost universal redemption on the app, which is pretty unheard of for us. So that was really cool to witness. We also saw that about 25% of our redemptions of this code came from new customers, indicating that these people had received the package as a gift. And these new customers actually had the highest AOV of all of the other user segments for this particular campaign. It was a super valuable conversion and really started to demonstrate to us the power of using QR codes to bring the offline marketing and bring these customers online. We also, another really fantastic KPI here is we have a shipping subscription called Stewardship. It allows you to pay one flat fee and you have your wine shipped for free all year. Wine shipping is very expensive if you're not familiar. So this is a way that we can help people mitigate that cost. And we saw just about a 20% join rate from this code of those who redeemed it who were not already subscribed. So we are seeing just phenomenal growth and acquisition through this program, not to mention the existing customers who went into the app, used it. We saw so many downloads and conversions through just this campaign alone. And by exceeding our expectations so far in a way, we've been implementing QR codes across a variety of print campaigns, more package inserts and other ways that people are having this direct experience with our product, as well as direct mail campaigns and even some partner marketing collateral with some of the wineries and groups that we work with. They have seen these results and really want to get on board with using the QR code. This was such a great campaign for us to learn so much in a short span of time. And I think one of the coolest things about this, especially when we're considering a print campaign, is we weren't always able to see as many, all the direct return or other engagement metrics as far as app downloads were concerned, especially with these print campaigns. We could test calls to action, we could track promo code usage, but it wasn't very substantive. And by including a QR code and using the branch dashboard, we really were able to see and measure whether or not people had this interest in engaging with us on the app. So it made it so easy to see how your offline efforts were converting to this digital platform. I think, so many people are engaging even more directly with their devices, and especially the print collateral coming to their homes because they're stuck at home. So I felt like this was such a great opportunity for us to look for the ways that we could take the things we were already doing and see where there were small spaces to make an impact. And in this case, it's like a 1x1 square. It's the smallest little space you can use. And it really made such a huge difference for us. And we're continuing to iterate on this.
All right. And like I said, I think that's a picture that I took with my phone without knowing, first of all, that wine.com is a partner of ours, or that was actually a branch link. And I posted it in a channel. I was like, guys, check this out. This is so cool. And then it turned out synergy. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
And we have this slide as well, actually. So this is the referrals that you were talking about.
Yeah, so we do use branch in a variety of ways, and QR codes was one of the few things we hadn't experimented with. But we use the journey banners to convert our mobile customers onto the app, using a lot of that same functionality of including promo codes, all of the tracking, everything within the query string. It's so easy to really test like which pages, which creatives are converting more people to the app. And then we also have a refer a friend campaign where we will use branch links in there as well to make sure that they're opening in the app or being directed to download. And it's been so helpful for us to have this, even talking about the gifting and also the referrals, this kind of organic word of mouth network. And it's really been supported a lot by the tools that we've used from Branch.
Good. So this is going beyond just QR codes, but into the other levels of the pyramid, tapping into your existing user base, tapping into your existing mobile web traffic. I love the idea of just incentivizing everything, putting coupons whenever you have a high ticket item, high average ticket business like wine, or like, as we'll see, department stores and retail. You can afford to give a little bit upfront because acquiring that new customer really is the hardest battle. And once you have them, if you provide a good experience, they should become loyal, spend a lot more down the road.
Absolutely. We're certainly seeing that.
Excellent. All right. Well, these are cool examples. We're going to move to the next one. I want to welcome Belk. And Katie, first, correct me. I know I saw a headline just in the last month or something where a Belk app downloads exceeded, was it all retail?
Yeah, we were leading all retail. So we're just a cute little Southeast retailer. And that was nationwide. So we just crushed it in the download category the 6 months or so. And just that velocity, and obviously there's, a lot of factors that go into your app store ranking and whatnot. But we just velocity, and we just crushed it. We've doubled in the last 6 months. So
wow. All right,
cool.
well, tell us about the app attack.
Yeah, so App Attack, on the mobile team, we all knew the app was the bee's knees, but higher conversion, higher AOV. We really felt like it was best for our customers to move as many as we could into the app, especially with COVID hitting. Direct mail decreased significantly. So having an app user, that contactability went up. We could do in-app messaging, just a lot more touch points there. So we created this kind of competition with our stores. We have about 300 stores in the Southeast. And we kind of posed them all against each other. So we would have the most downloads in a week or whatnot. We had an army of app ambassadors in our stores, encouraging downloads and communicating the benefits of having the app, whether it be to do in-store scan. You can scan a barcode and get the price of an item. So you stand in the store and you see these signs everywhere. It's hilarious. You can count probably 10 within eyesight. So the stores team totally got on board, and they did such an awesome job getting downloads. And our quarterly all hands meetings, we'd have competitions on which store was leading the charge and whatnot. And it was super good fun.
All right, and then we also have what else you're doing.
Yeah, so right about the same time we launched all the stores download, we also launched the Journeys banners on our website. So for any non-app user, you would get one banner. For any app user, we would encourage you to open the app, you'd get a different banner. And we also are trying to use Branch for all our organic. We did a lot of work getting our paid advertising. Those are all Branch links. We've worked with our Branch team for the last few months to get, pretty much any link out in the wild to open the app. And it's been huge. So last August, we were at 2 million lifetime downloads. And it took us about a little over 3 years to get there. With implementing this download program, and the Journeys banner, we doubled that in 6 months. So we're over 4 million now. So it's just been absolutely crazy. Our sales penetration for app has gone from 15% last year to 25%. So in the grand scheme of, Belk e-commerce, we're a big player now, and they have to think of mobile first and not just desktop all the time. And it's been fun. It's been super fun.
That's impressive. So we've said that the pandemic would accelerate certain e-commerce trends, but what you accomplished in a few months that took you a few years, that's amazing. Very cool examples. Cool. Thank you both. I'm going to come back to a couple specifics points just to spotlight them in a minute, because there's an aspect of that. But I just want to touch on desktop, because desktop also utilizes QR codes, or can. And again, this is another example of not many people were thinking about doing this. Just recently, some people did. And then all of a sudden it's driving a huge amount of value. And so again, this pyramid of acquisition, how do you move people up into the top apex of that pyramid? Well, desktop is often, depending on the business, it can be actually a huge source of traffic, but it's not mobile traffic. So it's a little bit harder to incentivize someone to download the app when they're not even on their phone. So it's untapped, previously untapped. We used to encourage people to do a text me the app. Now we're also offering QR codes. And in this case, this is a Shopify site, and they're actually offering both aspects. And so I'm actually, one of my homework assignments is to figure out which one of these is winning. So if that question came to you immediately also, please don't ask because I don't have data. I am going to look into it though. But this is two different methods to get someone to leapfrog directly from desktop all the way into the app, whether they enter their phone number, and with an integration with providers like Twilio, you actually get linked a text message with a link to the App Store, or you do what we've been doing everywhere else, which is you pull out your phone and you take a picture of your screen, and that works as well. Here are other examples. We've got Hungry Jacks down in Australia. They're doing the same thing. So previously, if you went to the app download page on a desktop, you might have only seen the Google Play and App Store logos. And now we're just putting one more thing on that screen. In this case, it's getting much bigger billing. But now you actually have the way to take someone directly there rather than just suggesting where they should go. And it can be on their phone. Here's another example. And here is the coolest example I've seen. So this is Nike. So now we've gone from a low intent user where you're hoping that they find the app info page on your website and hoping that they activate. In this case, they are using a QR code in a much more proactive way because they have a new product drop. It's not available. And they're saying the way that you can find out when this is available and get the sneaker drop is in our app. And so you click notify me and it pops up a QR code that will then actually deep link you into the app and take you to that product to set up a notification. So this is a very cool use case. Okay, and this is yet another one. This is actually it's like a photo editing software in Australia, and they're doing the same thing. And depending on where you are in the funnel, it might make sense to incentivize someone to then go to the app. If you have a desktop utility, for example, that has an accompanying app, if you're a travel company, an airline, and you've just purchased tickets, and to be able to stream a movie once you're on the flight, you need to have the app. So right there on the screen, you should be telling people, hey, don't forget to download the app now so that you can watch our entertainment when you're on the flight. So there's tons of use cases. When you think someone is a high intent user, you can lean into that moment because their view to click rate is going to be inherently much, much higher. And here's, I mentioned this before, this campaign was on NBC during America's Got Talent, I think, and they promoted a partner, an advertising partner, and they were able to drive downloads for Dunkin' Donuts. And I think, well, this one actually, I think we have the fact that it goes to the NBC app. I can't remember now if this was a redirect for Dunkin' or not, but I do remember that this had like tens of thousands of clicks just within a few minute window. So it was very much in the moment. QR codes are definitely becoming, I mean, they literally mean quick response code. They really are becoming an immediate dynamic interaction with a business. Okay, real quick before Q&A. So the future of QR codes. First of all, these are all over organic channels. And so that makes it a little bit easier to attribute. And it's also solving a lot of the blind spot that you might have on these own channels, especially in an offline world. We do support deep linking, including deferred deep linking. So not only taking someone to the App Store, but then landing them exactly where we wanted them to land, maybe even activating a promotion along the way. And so this is a pretty safe bet for tapping into the bottom half of that pyramid. And in the future, two important things. One, Branch is actually coming out with a QR code API. And so the reason I wanted to come back to the Belk example, so she gave the example of having every single store have their own QR code to create that friendly competition and incentivize driving downloads. Now, in theory, the same can be done all the way down to the store clerk level. So imagine every single employee has their own badge with a QR code on the other side, and they can drive downloads. Now, maybe from a business perspective, you don't want to have everybody bombarding you with download the app, please. But the point is the scalability. So you can attach there is a QR code associated with every branch link. Can you create them at scale? And so we are introducing an API for existing enterprise customers. And if you're interested in that, definitely reach out to your customer success manager from Branch to get more information. And we're also starting to customize QR codes. So you're starting to see requests Now that these are being used in print and in advertising, they need to look good too. So even just changing the color of the QR code to be more brand paralleled, and maybe put your little logo right there in the middle. This is just a silly test app that we have called Monster Factory. But the idea of putting your logo on there and just making it more pleasing to the eye, maybe even compelling, maybe doing different promotions with different types of imagery, that will be possible in the future. Okay, and we made it ahead of schedule.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to Q&A. But thank you again, Reed, Britta, and Katie. It was awesome learning about the growth stories. I know we're going to have Aaron join us from Branch. Hey, Aaron. Great. I'll introduce you. So we have Aaron Lopez. He is the senior software engineer at Branch, and he's going to answer any of our questions from the audience around QR codes. So we have a few so far. The first one being, will we be able to use this API in one of the Branch SDKs?
Yeah, so the first channel, as Reed noted, was desktop being a big place to put QR codes. So we're building it into our web SDK. So those that use the journeys, it'd be a quick code change to, instead of loading the same code to load a journey or track an event, they just do branch.QR code, and they'd be able to load a QR code right on their website, being able to customize it just as the API slide showed previously.
Awesome. All right, and then we have another one. Is it possible to zoom in on a QR from an image using a mobile device? Example, could a mobile user on a mobile web scan a QR code in an image? It's in the chat if that's a little confusing.
I'm actually not sure about this. Maybe Reed knows, but I know if you're at least on iOS, if you like get closer to it physically, makes it easier to scan. But I don't know how to do it from like mobile web itself.
I think this question is, if someone were to post a picture of it and you're looking at it on your phone, would it activate as a QR on your phone? I think that's what the question is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but and honestly, I don't know what the answer is. I just think that might be the use case.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I guess that's something we can definitely test out. Not sure either.
Okay, so that is the question.
Yeah.
But I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, we'll definitely get back to you, Garrett, once we test that out on our end, for sure. Second question, or third question, should I say, what analytics events will be published when a QR code is scanned?
So for regular QR codes, pretty much anywhere, if it has a branch link or you use our API, we'll track a click automatically. To come with the web SDK, we'll have the ability to track views, which will be super useful to compare intents like from journeys or from text me the app, as Reed pointed out. So that way you could see how people progress down the funnel.
Awesome. And then I think we've already saw this in the last slide, but it sounds like we can put any image on the QR code for in the future. I know definitely the logo. Yeah,
any custom logo. We have a parameter there to just set a logo URL. You could host it, and we'll be able to put it right behind that.
Very cool. And then finally, will I be able to put any custom link analytic data behind the QR code?
Yep. Any deep link data, if anyone uses the view and URL API, or like you do on the quick link creator, you could just put any of that same link data and it'll all be unique to that QR code.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Aaron. I really appreciate it. All righty. And then finally, for today, to close it out, we invite you to try scanning one of the QR codes on the screen here. Wine.com was so nice enough to give all attendees today $20 off a $50 app order. So definitely get some wine, and Wine Wednesdays tomorrow. And then the Belk QR code will link to their current deals and discounts that are running on their website and their app. So pretty exciting. Again, we'll test those out. And as a reminder, the webinar recording will be sent to you in the next day or so. And thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.